And now, the survival show that once survived a dead man's party. Who could ask for more? In this short, we discuss what I feel are the 7 best prepper books. Howdy and welcome to In the Rabbit Hole's Urban Survival Podcast. This is episode number 256. I'm your host, Aaron, and you are in the rabbit hole. Safe and sound. If you're new to ITRH, this is a summer short episode. As the name suggests, summer shorts are short episodes intended to tide you over till the full season starts back up in the fall. They come out about every 2 weeks. So if you're new and you're a little confused, wow, this is a weird podcast, it's very short, that's what is going on. You may go back a few episodes if you want some meaty stuff. You know, getting into things, sitting around here pondering, as I do from time to time, what's a fun, simple thing we can discuss today? I've had some heavier things on my mind lately, but I'm kind of heavied out at the moment. Yes, I'm making up words today. So I was sitting here staring around, thinking about things, looking over at my bookshelf, and I realized I get asked what my favorite books are often. And I started working through some things. And, oh, God, there's so many good ones. So I've narrowed it down to 7 in total. 6 are nonfiction, and 1 is a fiction book. Maybe in the next short, I'll share my favorite fiction. Let's get started with number 1, Emergency. This book will save your life by Neil Strauss. Full disclosure, I used to work for Mr. Neil Strauss. And you might say, even after working for the man for 6 years, Emergency is still one of my favorite books. In some ways, even more so because I know more about what was going on when the book was written than maybe only a few more people maybe know more than me about what was going on. And I also I know the guy. And so I kind of gave me a different dimension, but it's still, when people read it, they're like, wow, that was a good book. That personal connection aside, Neil's writing style is one of my favorites. The book grabs your attention and pulls you through the whole story. Along the way, you'll pick up, no pun intended, interesting preparedness lessons, both small and big. And really, that is the book in a nutshell. There are some really big, heavy lessons in there that I think people don't quite get at first, and then at the very end of the book, he has a tendency to wrap it all up, and you're kind of, oh, I get it now. Which, if you read any of other Neil's books that are not about the music industry, you get that all of the books that are sort of his books that aren't about someone else are, as we used to joke, they're really smutty, sensationalized topics meant to be a wrapper around something really important and really deep. The books are usually not about what the surface may appear to be about. Here's why I feel this is an important book for many preppers. And I think it's a story that a lot of people can relate to. Someone wakes up with the realization that bad things happen and that the world is messy, that we do not live in a utopian society, that there are these things out there that can get you. And then they go on a journey of becoming more prepared. And in his book, that happens, and along the way, shenanigans ensue. A final note about the book, which tends to leave a lot of readers confused. The book ends with hopefulness and jubilation over a certain president being elected. A large part of the ITRH audience isn't going to agree with his position at the end of the book. Let's just say he drank the Kool-Aid and really believed things were going to be different in a positive way. Hope and change and all that. And that, in a lot of ways, is a hidden lesson in the book. It's a long-term payoff of the book, you might say, and don't think he might disagree with me on this, or he might agree. I don't know. We haven't talked about it in forever. It demonstrates how silly it is believing anything a politician says or promises. Because once they get into the office, well, things happen. So there's that. Book number 2, Survival Guns by Mel Tappan. This is by far the best book on the topic of choosing firearms for survival and preparedness. Tappan makes clear and cogent arguments for and against certain firearms choices. He also discusses in depth when a firearm is the right choice and when it is the wrong choice for a particular job, which is one of the things I really fell in love with about the book. This is something that changed my thinking about guns and caused me to see them as tools with specific purposes and not multi-tools that can do it all. It is hands down the most well thought out and considered book on the topic for preppers. And that's also one of the fun parts about it is it's not just a general guns book. This book had a purpose and an audience in mind. And it was you and me. The book is out of print, unfortunately, but it is well worth the read. If you can find a copy that isn't crazy expensive. I actually wish I had bought a physical copy when I had the chance a few years back. I have a Kindle copy, and for the life of me, I cannot figure out why Amazon killed the Kindle version, or whoever it was that decided to kill the Kindle version, because it is no longer available for purchase either. There's one book that's listed on Amazon used for like $3,000, and then there's a few others that are like $50 or $60. If you can find one for cheaper, I would grab it. It's a really cool book, and the information, until we come out with phased 40-watt plasma rifles or something, the book is timeless in its thought processes and in the guns discussed. Number 3, you're going to think I'm crazy. Number 3, The Art of Eating Through the Zombie Apocalypse, a cookbook and culinary survival guide by Lauren Wilson. The book is cheeky, clever as hell, and well thought out. Even though the book is titled as a zombie book, it's a real book with real information. Think of it as a well-versed prepper who also happens to be a chef or just serious foodie, finds themselves in an apocalypse, doesn't matter what kind. The recipes and instructions are laid out based on a timeline of what you'd find to eat at different stages of a societal collapse. Kind of clever, right? Anyway, it's well done, it's well written, the illustrations are gorgeous, and it's hysterical. I love that book. Number 4, Bushcraft, Outdoor Skills and Wilderness Survival by Mors Kochanski. Think of this book as an encyclopedia of bushcraft and wilderness survival techniques. Now, this is a very dry read, as when you say an encyclopedia. When was the last time you read an encyclopedia and thought, "Wow, that was juicy," and dragged me all the way through? No, it's like reading an encyclopedia. One of the things that's fun about the book, before we get into really who the author is and why this is an important book necessarily, is that he's very Canadian, very Canadian. You can really hear the author coming through, and you really get a sense of this extra polite Canadian who is also calling you an idiot at the same time, which is more fun than it sounds like. But if you're into wilderness survival and bushcraft, you have to have this book on your shelf. Mors Kochanski is a legendary bushcraft practitioner. He is not, or was not, I'm not sure if he's still alive or not, a Bear Grylls or Les Stroud self-promoter. So most people outside the survival and bushcraft community have never heard of him. He's a very quiet, very understated guy who lives his whole life in the Canadian bush and teaches wilderness survival to military and people, and is a crazy man. I should warn you, if you are not into the wilderness side of survival, this book will not excite you. It will not be fun, but it really is a great book. So, next up, 2 books that are really kind of one. Number 5, On Killing, The Psychological Cost of Learning to Kill in War and Society by Dave Grossman. Number 6, On Combat, The Psychology and Physiology of Deadly Conflict in War and in Peace by David Grossman. These are books that every prepper should read. They're not light, fun, happy-go-lucky books. They are both books detailing the reality of being in and surviving violent encounters. Why I like them. They give you a lot of insight into what to expect during and after a violent encounter. This is really important, right? This is a topic that doesn't get covered enough, in my opinion, by the tactical community. Too often we focus on the gear and the skills and this and that, but we don't give enough thought or study to what will happen to our brains and hearts afterwards. Even if you're not a prepper who's into the tactical stuff or is sort of a pacifist, that's cool. This is still a must-read book. And now for my fiction recommendation. This one was really hard, but I would say it is number 7, Alas, Babylon by Pat Frank. Alas, Babylon, for those not familiar, is a story of strife and struggle after a nuclear detonation. In a nutshell, nothing too serious. I chose this one because it is a classic. The book was released in 1959. It's not the first dystopian fiction book in the Prepper Classic series. I think that distinction goes to Earth Abides, which came out in 1949. Also a good book, but a little on the odd side. Readers will find Alas, Babylon to be a slower paced book than modern fiction. This is true regardless of the genre. Fiction now tends to be much more fast paced, much more action packed, whether it's prepper, tactical, whatever. It's things move faster. We're more impatient, and this is a general thing. So don't start this book thinking you're going to read about running gun battles or racy sex scenes or zombies. That's not what this book is. It is what you would expect from a serious and somber 1959 take on post-nuclear war. If you're a fan of 1 Second After, you'll really appreciate this book and find a new appreciation for 1 Second After. Horsham took a lot of inspiration from Alas, Babylon. If you go through any of the rare interviews you can find with the guy, he often credits Alas, Babylon as one of the cornerstone inspirations that he used for his book. So, cool stuff. I hope I shared a book with you today that either you haven't heard of before or haven't gotten a chance to read. And maybe that spurs you on to go read a good book. One last thing before we close out today, I would like to send a special thank you out to everyone who sent in their condolences and well wishes about both my father and Daisy, the Tactical Weimaraner 2.0. I really do appreciate it, y'all. Show notes, resources, and links of all the books mentioned can be found by going to intherabbithole.com/E256. With that, we wrap up episode number 256 and the first of the 2018 Summer Shorts. From the Lone Star State. Till next time, stay safe and sound.